Good morning to all. Yesterday we have seen about the structure and functions of stomach. Today we have discussing a new topic, that is how the acid secretion takes place in the stomach and how it works like a mechanism and how it controlled by the parietal cells. We already discussed the HCl was secreted in the parietal cells. We have chief cells and parietal cells in the stomach. There the parietal cell secretes in the HCl. See here in this arrow there is a special muscle is there that prevents the acid reflexes. That means acid rebounds. It do not enter into again black flow to the esophagus. It prevent that. In everybody in our life sometimes feel very hunger or very burning sensation in the stomach and a hot burn sensation. It means the complete full esophagus it burns. Everyone feels this action. Why? Because it happens, and what is the reason behind that will all discussed in the this video. First one we want to know, in the gastric juice there is only HCl is not present. There are a list of fluids are there. About 2 liters of gastric fluid are secreted daily by the specialized secretory glands in the mucosa, which is consist of water, mineral salts, and mucus secretes the mucus neck cells and HCl and intrinsic factor by the parietal cells in the gastric gland, which secretes the HCl, and the inactive enzymes precursors like pepsinogen secreted by the chief cells. I said there are two cells, one is parietal cells, another one is chief cells. In parietal cell which secretes the hydrochloric acid, and the chief cells which secretes the pepsinogen for protein absorption. Next, the secretion of acid and pepsin. Gastric acid secretion from the parietal cells is regulated by the redundant and overlapping pathway. That is the endocrine. Endocrine in the sense that is a gastrin. In paracrine, which is locally delivered histamine and somatostatins. Next was one is neutral molecules, that is acetylcholine, and probably the autocrine. Autocrine in the sense the transferring growth factor, alpha factor. These are the gastrins and histamines, acetylcholine. These are the stimulating agent which stimulate the secretion of the acids and pepsin. There are three phases of the acid secretions are there. First one is cephalic phase, next is gastric phase, and last one is intestinal phase. In cephalic phase it takes place 30%. While we are smelling, chewing and swallowing food, it stimulates the parietal cells and the G cells and GRPs. In gastric phase 60% the gastric distensions and proteins after they entered into the food particles. Next one is the intestinal phase, that should happen in the 10%, which is the digested proteins. Already digested proteins takes place in 10%. In this cephalic phase, it is activated by the thoughts. If you imagine the hunger, or if you imagine any favorite foods, it automatically secreted in the stomach. The thoughts and taste, smell and sights of food, while we are seeing into the food pictures, we will feel acid secretion. And swallowing, if we swallow, and then the mediated mostly by the cholinergic and vagal mechanism. Next one is gastric phase, which is due to the chemical effect of the food and distension of the stomach. And this gastric appearance to be the major mediator, since the response to food is largely inhibited by blocking gastrin action at its receptor. And third one is intestinal phase, which accounts for only a small proportions of the acid secretory responses, which is to the meals. Its mediators remains controversial. Here this image gives you a summary for the phases of gastric acid secretions. First it is the cephalic phase. Why are the vagus? Vagus in the sense it is stimulated by the CNS vagal nerve. How it is stimulated means while we are looking or while we are smelling, like that it stimulates the brain and it sends to the impulse to secrete the acid. Next one is gastric phase, which is the local nerve secretory reflexes. It is the vagal reflexes and gastric histamine stimulation. Next one is the interstitial phase, which is the nervous mechanism happened here, and the humoral mechanisms. Next, we will see in the mechanism of acid secretion. First, the hydrogen ion concentration in the parietal cell, which is secreted, is roughly 3 million fold higher than the blood. And the chloride is secreted against the both concentration and electric gradient. Ability of the parietal cells to secrete acid is dependent on active transport. Which is active transport? The key players in the acid secretion is hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. That is a proton pump which is located in the canalicular of the membrane. Here, the hydrogen ions are generated within the parietal cells from the dissociation of the water. The hydroxyl ion formed in this process rapidly combine with carbon dioxide to form a bicarbonate. Water and carbon dioxide both combine to form a bicarbonate ion. This reaction catalyzed by the carbonic anhydrase enzyme. With this bicarbonate is transported out of the basolateral membrane in exchanges for the chloride. This bicarbonate which is secreted for the reason to exchange the chloride ions. Then the outflow of bicarbonates into the blood which results in the slight elevation of the blood pH known as the alkaline tide. This process serves to maintain the intracellular pH in the parietal cells, and the chloride and potassium ions are transported into the lumen of canaliculus by conductance channels, and such is necessarily for the secretion of acids. And this hydrogen ion is pumped out of the cells into the lumen in exchange of potassium through the action of proton pump. The potassium is thus effectively recycled. Accumulation of osmotically active hydrogen ion in the canaliculus generates an osmotic gradient across the membrane that results in the outward diffusion of the water. Then the resulting gastric juices is 155 mm HCl and 15 mm KCl, which is a small amount of NaCl. We know stomach has 4 layers. The first one is a cardia, fundus, body and antrum. Here the parietal cells is present in the fundus region, and antrum region the G cells and D cells are presented. In this fundus there is a parietal cell which secretes the HCl. There is, see here, there is a ATPase pump is there, which is detailedly explained in this image. See here, this in image there is a yellow, purple and pink colors are there. In yellow color which indicates the lumen of the gland lumen, and the purple color is the parietal cell region. After that there is red color indicates the blood side. In here the lumen side there is a ATP and potassium sodium ATP pump is there in the blood side. In the lumen side potassium hydrogen ATPase is also there. Both the side there is a pump is there, that is the active transport we already know. In see here the upper side is the chloride channel is there. See here, first the carbon dioxide enters into the bloodstream to the parietal cells, and the parietal cells which contains already the H2O, and this H2O will breaks to hydrogen and OH molecules. Then the OH plus CO2 molecules through the carbonic anhydrase enzyme which converts the bicarbonates, which bicarbonates is enter into the blood side, followed by that the hydrogen ion is there which comes to the lumen of the gland. When it comes to the lumen of the gland, there the where there the Cl is comes out, this Cl and H ions is combined to form a HCl. What is the role of H and potassium ATPase pump? Here the transport of the hydrogen ion to the from parietal cells to lumen, it's need one active transport, that is the H potassium ATPase pump. Once this acid is secreted, we have to control the acid secretion. For that we'll see in the control of acid secretion now. Parietal cells bear receptors for stimulator of the acid secretion, that is acetylcholine, gastrin and histamines. When a low level of each acetylcholine, gastrin, histamines are present, the acid secretion is strongly forced. Additionally, pharmacologic antagonists of each of these molecules can block acid secretion. Histamine's effect on the parietal cells is the activate adenylate cyclase, leading to the elevation of the intracellular cyclic AMP, which is control concentration and activation of the protein kinase A. One effect of pKa activation is phosphorylation of cytoskeletal protein involved in transport of the H plus potassium plus ATPase from cytoplasm to the plasma membrane. Binding of these acetylcholine and gastrin both results in elevation of the intracellular calcium concentration. See here in this image, there is acid secretion through H ions which goes out, which is in the protein kinase activation. Here the calcium and the cyclic AMP activation, which blocks the ATPase action. Why we want to control the acid secretion? Because the excess acid secretion which rebound and reflexes back into the esophagus, then we feel the heart burning and stomach burning is there continuously. It keep on happened means there is ulceration is formed. For that reason we want to control the acid secretion that happened in involuntary movement. The secretion and control was balanced. With this I finished the gastric acid secretion and control and its mechanism. If any doubt you can comment me at any time. um, Today's question was, what are all the different phases of the acid secretion? Thank you for patient listening.